Dolores Huerta and the United Farm Workers. Dolores was born in April 10, 1930 in Dawson, New Mexico. Unfortunately for Dolores, at the age of 3, her parents had divorced, and Dolores and her siblings stuck along with their mom, and they moved from New Mexico to California to settle in and start their new life. One of Dolores' first influences to fight for justice and make a change started when she noticed constant unfair treatment within her community. Unfortunately for Dolores, this wouldn't be the end. She rather had a personal eye-awakening experience when her own brother was beaten by police for wearing a zoot suit, which wasn't illegal. However, this was just the beginning. In Dolores' early 20s, she became a teacher, but this shortly changed after she saw the horrible conditions her students were in. Dolores had noticed a pattern that her students were constantly coming into her classroom poorly clothed and hungry. Dolores no longer could stand by this because she thought that teaching alone wouldn't solve the deeper problems within the lives that her students' families were facing, such as economic inequality, poor working conditions, and the lack of rights that farm workers had. Once Dolores quit teaching in order to make a change, she put lots of time and effort to become a powerful community organizer and an activist who focused on fighting for farm worker rights and social justice. After time, Dolores joined a community service organization, also known as CSO, where she started working there alongside with lots of other people who wanted to make a change for Latinos. There, she met Cesar Chavez. In the mid-1960s, farmer workers were having similar issues as other farm workers, such as low pay and tough working conditions. This caused a Filipino labor leader named Larry E. Teong to start a strike. Very soon after, he also joined forces with Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez. Once these influencing leaders stood together, now both Mexicans and Filipinos worked together to organize bigger crowds. Once both these crowds gathered more people, Dolores and others began to travel across state in order to urge consumers to stop buying grapes.
On September 8, 1965, the Filipino workers from the grape farms went on strike and left the grape fields. The Filipino workers had had enough of the little pay, which was lower than the living wage. They were organized in a union called the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, led by Larry Leong and Ben Gines. However, Leong knew that their strike would be useless unless they united with the Mexican-American workers. So Leong asked Cesar Chavez to unite with the NFWA. At first, he was hesitant to agree, but after being persuaded by the Mexican workers, he decided to agree. However, many of the growers refused to negotiate with the workers as they believed. In December of 1965, the NFWA committed their first boycott on a company called the Shenley Industry, which was the second largest grower in Delano and had millions of liquor sales each year. Members from the union advised people to not buy or sell Shenley products. Eventually, they were able to drop their sales significantly by April of 1966. Finally, also in 1966, the company decided to sign a labor agreement with the union, which was one of the union's first victories. From 1967 to 1969, the UFW boycott became international while the strike still continued. People started to become impatient, and some even wanted to resort to violence, so Cesar started fasting. He saw fasting as an impactful, non-violent protest and as a reminder to the farm workers that he was willing to sacrifice even his own life for the union. This showed the farm workers that he was loyal and committed to the union, which in return gave them hope that their non-violent protests would eventually work. Finally, in 1970, the grape growers gave in and signed their first union contract, which granted the workers better pay, benefits, and protections. The boycott finally ended. They were finally recognized by the grape growers, which was a big step because it meant that they saw the union as the official representative for the workers, and that gave them legal rights to ask for more. In 1975, the Agricultural Laborers Relations Act was passed, which allowed workers to negotiate terms and conditions of their employment with or without their union representation. Originally, when the law bill was proposed, Governor Ronald Reagan opposed it and killed the bill. But the election of Jerry Brown as governor was what made it possible for the bill to be passed. The bill was officially passed on the 4th of June in 1975.
Thanks to Dolores Huerta, what do we have now? Thanks to Dolores Huerta, we have stronger rights and protection for farm workers across the country. She stood up for those who have been ignored and mistreated. Examples include secure, fair wages, safer working conditions, and the right to form unions. She also gave us the powerful phrase, "Si se puede," which translates, "Yes, we can," which has inspired many activists and more. Dolores is a great example of not just fighting for labor rights, but also standing up for women's rights. Her work helped shape civil rights laws like bilingual education, immigrant reforms, and equal hiring. Through her efforts, her foundation has also helped continue to train other people to speak up. Thanks to Dolores Huerta's courage and dedication, we now live in a world that is more fair, more just, and most importantly, more helpful. Cesar Chavez is remembered as a powerful leader for farm worker rights, but he may not have been the icon that he is today without the help of Dolores Huerta. Dolores was the one who organized, negotiated, and was the one who used her voice to speak out while Chavez stayed more behind the scenes.